Let me ask a question. Why doesn't today's Japan resist the United States? The core of the Japanese national character is a distorted worship of the strong and contempt for the weak. Facing their American daddy, they can abandon their dignity with a clear conscience and play a submissive role. But when facing the Asian neighbors they once ravaged, they constantly tamper with and beautify that history of aggression, even dreaming of reliving their former glory.
In the 19th century, when faced with America's black ship invasion, the Japanese thinker Yoshida Shuin did not conceive of resistance,
but instead designed a vile philosophy of survival for the Japanese people, the compensation theory. Since Japan was powerless to resist Western imperialism, it should bow its head, submit, and willingly become a vassal. Then, this humiliation would be redirected by invading and colonizing the weaker Korea and Manchuria. They would plunder resources to compensate for their own losses suffered at the hands of America. This is the gangster logic of the weak drawing their sword against the even weaker. The compensation theory gave Japan an excuse to draw its sword against the weaker,
while Fukuzawa Yukichi's de-Asianization and Europeanization elevated this into a betrayal at the level of national policy.
The core of this theory was to completely abandon their Asian identity, transform themselves into a member of the Western imperialist camp, and thus legitimately participate in the hunting and carving up of their Asian neighbors. Fukuzawa Yukichi blatantly declared, Asia is a land of barbarian countries, while Japan must join the civilized club of Euro-American hunters. The so-called de-Asianization and Europeanization was, in essence, scrambling to be the running dog of imperialism, acting as a jackal to the tiger and turning to bite its own kind. Furthermore, the United States single-handedly propped up those war criminals, financial oligarchs, and right-wing elements who should have been swept into the dustbin of history, allowing them to transform into Japan's political dynasties and ruling elite. Therefore, Japan's ruling class feels nothing but gratitude towards the United States. Grateful that the U.S. did not let them carry out the 100 million jade-shattered plan, grateful that the U.S. gave them economic orders, and grateful that the U.S. rebuilt them from the ruins of defeat into an economic powerhouse.
In return, they willingly offered their entire country to the United States to serve as its most loyal pawn in Asia. The fathers and grandfathers of many of today's Japanese entrepreneurs, politicians, and oligarchs were either war criminals or militarists.
The Americans used a dirty exchange of interests to shelter these beasts in human form.
So the United States never intended to eradicate the soil of Japanese militarism. It merely took the products of this soil for its own use. The U.S. doesn't care about Japan's right-wing or fascist tendencies, as long as those tendencies can serve America's global strategy. In exchange, Japan is happy to regard the United States as its own father, and with a clear conscience, transforms the shame of defeat into the glory of being attached to a hegemon. Therefore, as long as the United States remains the world hegemon, Japan will forever play the role of the most submissive servant. Because clinging to the strong has long been its instinct. Under this deformed patronage, it will never admit to the crimes it committed against Asia, because its master has never truly held it to account.